let everybody know this meeting is being recorded. Okay, everyone stand, call the special meeting of the Germantown Central School District Board of Education order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I do need a motion to amend the agenda to include personnel A under consent to agenda items as listed and add for budget. All right, Heather first, Les second. Okay. Any discussion? You're all muted, so.
You have to shake your heads, yeah.
Yes or no? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, make sure your hands go up. Or Linda, do you want to call on everybody to vote? Hit your...
I'm working on it.
To unmute yourself, you should just be able to hit your space bar.
Yep. Oh, that's right. You hold down the space bar to speak. Go ahead, Lynn, you can speak.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, unless someone's voting no,
Okay.
a show of hands is fine.
Okay. All right, just make sure we can see everybody's hands. Okay. All right. Items to be re-voted on from the April 8th, 2020 Board of Education meeting. Resolution suspending policies. Action. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby suspends the provisions of the Board Policy 1510, regular board meetings and rules, and Board Policies 1520, special meetings of the board regarding public meetings and including public attendance, video conferencing, and public expression at the meetings. For tonight's board meeting and for all future board meetings and other meetings until Governor Cuomo determines the state of emergency no longer exists in New York State due to COVID-19. I need a motion. All right, Teresa, Heather, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, Donald, you can move your hand a little. There you go. All right, opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right. Approve consent agenda items as listed. I need a motion. Annie one, Les two. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. And financial action items. Adopt the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the terms of the supplemental memorandum of agreement between the district and the Germantown Administrators Association, dated March 30th, 2020, as presented to the board at this meeting, a copy of which agreement shall be incorporated by reference within this meeting. I need a motion. All right, Teresa, any second? Les, or Donald, excuse me. Second, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, adopt the resolution for hourly employees not covered by collective bargaining agreements. Whereas there is a COVID-19 pandemic facing the state of New York and world at large, and whereas the governor of New York State has declared a state of emergency in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas the chief executive of Columbia County has declared a local state of emergency for a period of 30 days until April 15th, 2020, whereas the district employs certain hourly employees either by resolution or terms and condition agreements, whereby such employees are ordinarily and only paid for actual hours worked. And whereas pursuant to the Fair Labor Standards Act, the district believes that it is essential to have such employees waiting to be engaged to work for their regular scheduled work hours. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education authorizes payment for all hourly employees who are not covered by collective bargaining agreements based upon the hours that they are scheduled to work, as long as they are ready, willing, and able to be engaged wherein called upon by the district during the pendency of the state of emergency. I need a motion. All right, Annie, Donald second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? So carried.
I did have a question.
Oh, sorry, Donald.
I just wanted to say, why don't we update the April 15th to May 15th?
Sue, do you have
Because you're re-voting on something that
Okay.
occurred at the last meeting, so
Okay.
it should be exactly the same.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think we've gotten any further guidance at this point, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's really, this vote is about establishing, because we had a little bit of a technical difficulty in the April 8th meeting. So we want it to be exactly the same as then.
Right. Okay. All right, curriculum and instruction, action item. Adopt resolution to modify the 2019-2020 calendar. Whereas in response to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the governor of New York State, or governor of the state of New York, excuse me, has called upon each public school district to assure that the period commencing April 1st, 2020 through April 29th, 2020, all weekdays shall be designated as student instructional days. And whereas there has been a mandate placed upon New York State public school districts to continuously provide food services and child services in accordance with their plans as submitted to New York State Education Department in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board hereby modifies the adopted 2019-2020 school district calendar by establishing the days of April the 1st through April 29th as student instructional days, thereby changing April 10th through April 17th from spring recess days to student instructional days. And be it further resolved, in addition to implementing the district's continuity of learning plan during each of the weekdays commencing on April 1st, 2020 and through at least April 29, 2020, the district shall continue its child care services and food service plans as submitted to the New York State Education Department while awaiting further direction from the New York State government officials. Need a motion? All right, Les, 1. Heather, 2. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay, opposed? Abstained? So carried. And superintendent, action item.
Action item A, approve first reading, waive second reading, and adopt revised policy 4212, organizational chart.
All right, I need a motion. Anyone? Someone second. Teresa, second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, capital project, non-action items, capital project update by Dave Samuel of CPL and Luis Rodriguez of TPG.
If Dave and Lou don't mind, I think I told you this, but I can't remember. I do have the video of the most recent walkthrough queued up to show the board, and they would get to see our walkthrough from last week. If the board is okay, I will go ahead and share the screen and play that.
Okay.
If I can figure out how to do it. There it is.
If you look down here, they got the cutouts for the, that they're not gonna do right away until they get those reactions down. And those are, pretty much, you know, ready to go. All cut out, ready to go. Like I said, once the wheel's out, boom, because they got to do a lot of work on those. They got to bring all the existing padding and everything. Has to be all modified.
This is the mini locker room.
That's the locker room area.
So that's a dual purpose room.
Yeah.
It could be a locker room for a small team, but it's also going to be a changing room for for folks in the drama club. So it has a dual purpose.
These are your bathrooms. They're all the little hot water heaters.
So the beauty of the bathrooms is now students in elementary gym will have bathrooms to use that are close in proximity. It's always been an issue. But in addition, there will be a door with access from the playground for students to use a bathroom that can be used by the public because the internal door will keep them from entering the rest of the building. This is a very important bathroom that was put a lot of thought into access for this bathroom. This is the band and chorus room. We've got a keyboard lab here. Some small practice rooms across the back. Notice the beautiful light that they'll have in their band and chorus room. There'll be permanent risers in this area. So we have an overhead door. So the wood, say they're using wood to build a set, they can load it here. And then another overhead door to get the piano or the wood or the sets right in there. So
Want to see the addition, please? Oh, good.
So that would be the grand entrance down there, and above it, that's our tech booth. And you can see catwalks up there for all the lighting adjustments they would need to do.
And all the way up on the third level will be where your spotlights go.
Spotlights way up there. They're going to have a giant tech booth with wonderful visual, and they'll be controlling everything via the tech down here. And it's just so exciting to see. Okay, hopefully everybody could hear that okay. Did that work all right?
Yeah, sound was a little off here, but
Okay.
videos are always like that here. It's not a big deal.
You could probably hear my big mouth because I talk pretty loud. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Dave and Lou, who can give you a summary of what's going on.
They have to unmute themselves.
Oh, hey guys,
How we doing, Lou?
can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Oh, good deal. So, wow, I don't don't really have to say a lot. The video did it all. I guess the first thing we want to talk about is I know that, a lot of questions in regards to continuing the project and keeping the site safe. When everything first happened, the first thing we did was we got a COVID business plan from each one of the contractors. So each contractor has their own specific way that they're dealing with the pandemic. Each company has a specific business plan that gets approved by their particular company and their insurance carriers and whatnot to just say how they're proceeding. So that was the first thing we did, was to make sure that everyone had a plan in place, and we have that on file along with their safety documentation. The second thing we did was really try to figure out what was going to change on the site to allow the contractors to, continue to work safely, proper distancing, and, could we or could we not work? And then there's also, in parallel with that, was the daily or every other day, there would be another change in the executive order. Everyone had a different interpretation. So my job in particular was to try to keep the project moving, keep contractors working, and keep them working safely. So, to date, I think we've done a pretty good job. I think there's daily we make a shift if required. Again, depending on the executive order. There's been times where things have become more stringent. In particular, most recently, the face masks now being used. But the positive with this is that we believe we've been able to keep the job moving, keep keep people employed, and at the same time still working very safely. So, I guess the first thing I'd like to know is, are there any questions in regards to, what we're doing in regards to COVID-19?
Anybody have any questions? All right, Heather, just hit your space bar or hold it down. You gotta
Okay,
hold
like
it
that.
down, though. Yeah.
Okay. So guys are wearing masks. Are they wearing gloves? Is there enough space for them to stay 6 feet apart? Or surfaces being wiped down that they touch if they're not using gloves, that kind of thing happening?
Yeah, so as far as the safety masks are concerned, the contractors are being required to wear the masks. The contractors are wearing gloves where we're able. When you look at the site work contractors in particular, if you look outside, the contractors there have been able to keep proper distancing. You have maybe a guy in a machine, a couple of laborers outside of that working. So on the site side, not much issue. The exterior envelope of the building, we've started prepping for the EFIS work to start. So that's going to be happening, setting up scaffold for that work to start next week. Again, the production is gonna slow because of the distancing requirements, but we will be able to keep the distancing requirements there inside the building. In particular, as well, the contractors have been, doing a pretty good job in the addition for keeping their distances. The guys that are inside the main building are the electricians. They've been pulling cable, and the next step is really to be we're looking to get into the mechanical room, the boiler room, to start setting up for the pumps for the hot water supply to the addition. generally speaking, everybody's doing a pretty good job at following the rules and keeping safe.
So the contractors are providing all the PPE that their workers need?
The contractors are required to provide all of the PPE that's needed for their crew to be working. Yes.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Nanny? Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Anything else on that? So, above and beyond that, again, the contractors are continuing to perform. We've been even through this situation, we've been able to keep a pretty good lock on our schedule. The last piece of the puzzle that we'll be talking about at our executive meeting tomorrow really has to do with the pump house for the fire suppression. And we just need to nail down the direction there. But again, that's outside of the addition. Right now, our schedule for substantial completion was right at the beginning of September, and we're still trying to push for that. So again, based on everything that the country's going through, and there's been manufacturing facilities that have been shut down. We luckily were at the front end of this thing, so that really the only area that we've been told that there could be a delay because the manufacturing facilities has shut down were the seating contractors. So the seats that go into the auditorium were originally scheduled to be on site in middle to late July. That's when we're looking for that shipment of the chairs. We have not been given any notification that factory is open back up. So there may be a push on the delivery of the chairs, but that doesn't stop us from finishing the rest of the work.
Okay. Anything else for Lou?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Are we gonna talk about some of the structural issues that we've had? There was a crack or something I read in one of.
I think Dave, you guys looked at that, right?
Yeah, do you want to move on to that, or you want to finish up on the bond work? Because I can talk about it now if you want.
Well, let's do the bond work first, then we'll go. Okay. Is everybody else good for the actual project? It looks great.
No, it's amazing. The space really feels great. It's really going to be just a nice cozy place when you're here watching productions. So
Good.
yeah, it's really nice.
That's good.
Yeah, let me just add one thing. We had talked with the site work, there was some potential for rock and things like that. And I don't know if you've been out there lately, but the contractor has been able to achieve what we're looking for baseball field without that rock impacting the schedule or the cost. So that's been a win-win for us. And he's moving right along. I think he's looking to do his topping work coming up in the next couple of weeks. Lou, I don't know exactly the schedule. Do you know when he's looking to seed? I know we had the issue with the clay that should have been resolved today, but I'm not sure about that.
He's already got stone. I was just out there because I was going back and forth with Joe, but I just walked inside and we got the stone down, and he's right now sifting topsoil. So I'd say within a week, with the weather working with us, with a week and a half, we should be looking to seed that area.
Cool. And it was 2 or 3 growing seasons, 2 growing seasons before they can use them?
We talked about 2 growing seasons, which would have been the, this spring,
Yeah,
which is what we're looking to hit. So it would be
Yeah.
the spring and the fall,
yeah,
and then the spring of 2021, you guys would jump back on it.
okay.
And the good thing here too, one of the other cost saving scenarios was we're able to reutilize your existing well and tank for irrigation.
Oh, good.
So that saved us as well. So we're going to recharge that system, and that's going to come online once we're ready after the seed is down.
That's good. Okay. All right, anything else? Any questions? All right. All right, thanks, Lou.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Take care.
Dave? Thanks.
Tammy, did you want Dave to address the slab crack question?
Yeah,
That'd be great.
Okay, so you all know we had a structural engineer come out and take a look. And what he found was that the area where the slab is cracking, especially in that one classroom, it was caused by when they put the addition on, there was an existing stairwell in that area. So if you remember, the crack wasn't just a straight crack across the room. It kind of went into the room about a third of the way or half of the way and then turned and went to the perpendicular, in the perpendicular direction. And that was because that was where a stair tower was. So what he found was that likely that the slab for the existing building and the slab that was added to infill that stair tower weren't pinned together. So they're moving independently. It's not a structural issue, the crack, it's cosmetic, but it's likely that if it's not corrected, it would repeat itself. So we looked at 2 issues, two potential remedies. One would be to do a cosmetic patch, which seems like it would be about $30,000 and something that would have to be repeated over time because the movement wouldn't be stopped. Another potential fix would be to pin the slabs together like they should have been pinned, and then do one floor leveling and flooring, and that's probably about $40,000, and it would only have to happen once. So certainly that would be our recommendation, but the main takeaway here is that it's not a safety issue beyond the tripping hazard that it is. It's not a structural failure in any way.
well, that's good.
So I just want to throw out there a little clarification. We are talking about in the existing building, and this has nothing to do with the construction project that's happening.
All right. So we could fix that at a later date with one of the capital exception projects or something along those lines.
Yes.
Okay, Annie, just hold on. I was just looking at the comments. It says, are we saving money by not having to pay for sports practicing on other sites?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So the hurt should have happened. I would assume that when the actual building, when they added that addition, Dave, that should have been something that should have been caught.
Right.
Okay.
So if you had, I need to push the space bar down if I want you to hear me. Well, I think I used the word pinning. So basically what it means is that for the existing concrete slab, they would drill holes horizontally in that slab and put a rebar in a dowel. And then when they pour the slab next to it, that concrete would set up and bite into that same rebar. So essentially making it move like one slab. So that wasn't done. It should have been done, but this was done. I'm guessing that was the 2000 edition, connecting to building that was probably built in the 40s or 50s.
Okay. So.
And
Oh,
Dave, I did unmute you, so you
yeah, you're unmuted, so you're good.
Okay.
you don't need to press the space bar.
All right, so Annie, I don't know why. What Annie asked, why wouldn't it be done, and why should we have to pay for their negligence? Whatever company who made that, or from Heather. I'm sorry, not Annie. So.
The short answer is you'd spend more money in legal fees than it would be
Yeah.
to fix the patch, to fix the slab. But you're right. It should have been done. It should have been picked up. It wasn't. And now, some 15, 20 years later, there's movement.
Okay.
I would like to add that we were extremely pleased that it wasn't a structural issue, because that would be a whole different can of worms.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely looks worse than it is. I thought it was a structural crack as well until we dug in a little deeper.
And where is it exactly, Sue? What part of the?
It's upstairs in the high school computer lab, and then it goes out into the hall a little bit.
Okay.
It's right where there's a small ramp.
Yeah.
This changes level there. It's right there.
Okay. Okay. All right, so may I have anything else for Dave? All right, go ahead, Heather. Wait, you can. She says, which fix will last longer? The fixing it with the rebar would last longer.
Yeah, the permanent fix, you fix
Yeah.
it once. The other one, you're going to fix it, and then in a few more years, it's going to
Fix
crack
it.
again, and you're going to get to do it again.
Okay. So cost effectiveness is to fix it once,
Correct.
because you said it was going to be like 30 grand to fix it just cosmetically, right?
Right.
So.
And at $40,000, it would reach the level of a capital project, so you could get building 8 on it if we went up to SCD with a patch and a carpet would be that would be a repair, and you wouldn't get 8 on it anyway.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Good. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Everybody's good with capital project stuff? All right. So we will move on to approve consent agenda items as listed. Need a motion? All right, Donald, then Annie. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. And curriculum and instruction, action item, adopt the resolution approving intermunicipal agreement with Columbia County. Says, whereas as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, there is an extreme shortage of the emergency protective health and safety equipment needed by Columbia County, the county and its healthcare personnel and first responders. And whereas pursuant to the governor's executive orders declaring a state of emergency, the Germantown Central School District, the district has been closed since March 18th, 2020, and at least through April 29th, 2020, with further closure possible, and therefore has health and safety equipment that is not currently needed for the school district purposes. And whereas the district and the county desire to enter into intermunicipal agreement pursuant to Article 5-G of the New York State General Municipal Law to enable the district to transfer surplus health and safety equipment to the county, provide the county transfers any excess unused equipment received from the district back to the district after the shortage due to the COVID-19 pandemic is resolved. And whereas the district Board of Education has determined that it is in the best interest of the district to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the county to share health and safety equipment in a form approved by District Legal Counsel. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the intermunicipal agreement with the county and authorizes the superintendent of schools to execute said agreement on behalf of the district. And be it further resolved that the board authorizes the superintendent of schools to designate health and safety equipment not needed for a school district purpose as surplus and to transfer such surplus equipment to the county pursuant to the terms of the intermunicipal agreement. All right, need a motion? Okay, Heather first, Donald second. Any discussion? All right, Teresa has a question. Hit your space bar, Teresa. Hold it down.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, there you go.
All right, my question is, I see where it says about returning unused equipment, but what about the equipment that we give them? Will we be reimbursed in any way through either Governor Cuomo's office, the county, or the state?
So we've been advised by FEMA to keep very detailed records, and this, I have we started a file to record every single expense. This surplus would be considered an expense, and we hope to get reimbursed for everything that we donated to the town by FEMA.
Okay. Anything else? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, and our last item, non-action item, the 2021 budget presentation by Susan Brown, Superintendent of Schools.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen again, hopefully. And
You
bring,
can leave the meeting if you want. It won't impact us if you decide to leave.
okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so this is the 2021 budget proposal, also known as a spending plan for the upcoming school year. As you know, we have a budget process in place where we begin with 3 years of data about actual spending. Then usually in the early part of the year, we receive revenue information from New York State regarding state aid for the upcoming year. We adjust that based on numbers that we are aware of, and that was now presented at the 2 previous board meetings to the board. We calculate the tax levy and submit it to the state. That was also presented, has been completed. And then we begin adjustments. So we adjust the spending plan for next year based on salaries, debt, anything that has changed. We review the implications of previous year's budgets, and what we've done in the past several years is to try to bring back some of the things we lost during the economic downturn of 2008 and 9. And then we obviously meet with all the departments, see what the needs are. And all the time that this is going on, the big picture of student needs is being worked on by the leadership team. And we talk about all of the details of the needs of students, students with disabilities, homeless families, students with 504 plans, all of our students and all of our program, and how to align that program with the vision and focus goals of the school district. I usually afterwards, Dina and I, and actually it was Jonathan in the beginning meeting with each of the departments to go into detail, to look at all the previous expenses and hopefully identify increased efficiency and make recommendations. And then we review all those adjustments with the Board of Ed. And we are at step 8, but we had a little glitch with some of the other steps, which I'll go over now. So I can't see my numbers. So give me a second and let me move us. Oh, goody. So this is the first section of our spending plan. And what I've done this year is I'm showing every single slide now, the next 3 slides will show actual expenses for 3 years, 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19. Obviously, we don't know the actual expenses yet for the year we're sitting in because it does not close out until June 30th. But instead, we thought that you'd like to see what we budgeted for in the present year. And then the proposed budget is this last column for 2021. There's really not a lot of big changes here. Probably, I did want to point out, though, that we have added a sub-finder service. Finding substitute teachers is a big challenge for all school districts. And this is something we've been looking at for years. And we did add that service to the business administration line. And another one, you'll see a big drop here. And that's because we had the SRD in this line. And Jonathan and I back in January said, okay, that's in the wrong place. Let's put it in security. So you'll see that reflected in another slide after this one.
Sue, just one question.
Sure.
Annie asked, why was there such a big jump in the board?
Oh, the Board of Ed, yes. We changed that because last year we did a little experiment to see if we could save money, and we printed the newsletter in-house.
Yeah.
And we pulled it off and saved a bunch of money. Actually, I'm glad you asked that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. This is operations, maintenance. I can't read the rest. So operational plan. So so what happened is when the COVID crisis began to affect the economy, which obviously that's an understatement. The first thing that happened is in our last presentation, we showed you how the revenues that we thought we were going to get, the slight increase, disappeared completely. And I'll review this at the end of the PowerPoint as well. Not only did our increase, our small $10,000 increase disappear, but in addition to that, there is a pandemic amount of money being taken out of our potential state aid and then added back in to really give the state a little bit of flexibility because obviously there's a lot of unknowns in our state economy right now. That being said, we had to get busy going in and removing whatever we felt we could remove. And I've highlighted in red either the reason for a change or some things that you're not going to see in this spending plan, but we had hoped you would. So that affected our operation of plant. In the operation of plant, we have always said the year that the addition opened up, we would take our part-time custodian and move that position to a full-time custodian. We have removed that. We are keeping the part-time custodian. We are unable to move that to a full-time position. We also reduced the equipment lines, which only went into the budget a couple of years ago. We didn't take them out completely because equipment does need to be replaced, but we did reduce it from 7,500 to 3,000. This next section is maintenance of plant. And we had added a line this year, another thing I was excited to tell you about, for small facility improvements. The board is constantly monitoring our 5-year plan and all small repairs that need to be done. And we had put a line in here hoping to sort of get at that list, a couple of projects a year in-house, small projects, and just get them off that list. Unfortunately, we did have to take that out. And in this line, we also reduced equipment from 7,500 to 3,000. The next line is simply a line that is more appropriate for the school resource deputy, of which we share. The county pays half of that, the cost of having that individual, and the school district pays the other half. The 1680 central data processing. This is a whole bunch of different BOCES, COSERs that we use. As a small district, it is very beneficial, as opposed to hiring individuals to cover these areas, to use the BOCES, COSERs for this. One of them, and one of the most important ones, is the health and safety COSER that we have that does a variety of things for the district, and we would want to keep that, obviously. We did add, I did not take it out, the 2D support, and that's kind of my shorthand. The new rules, as you know, this evening you appointed Dina Bizzaro as our data protection officer, and the new rules that started at the federal level and have now at the state level to protect the data of all individuals associated with the school district. And it's not just students, although very importantly it is students, it is also staff and families as well. So this is an important and very, very complicated project, and we are really looking to BOCES to help us with this. Of course, the state would love us to hire an administrator to do this kind of thing. We are far too small for me to justify that. But the BOCE support partnered with Dina Bizzaro, our new business manager, they'll be able to get that work done. The special items, it's a group of items that don't really fit into any other category. It includes a lot of BOCES items. And I'm just looking it up really quick. I have it right here to tell you what it includes. 1,900 items are tax refunds, sewer assessment, dues such as New York State school boards are all in that line. Are there any questions on any of these items?
Yeah, Annie asked BOCES increase. Annie, why don't you ask the question? Just hit your space bar and you can actually ask it. Just keep your space bar down.
That's $100,000 right there. You know, what accounts for that 126 to 211 difference?
I'm seeing 211 to 221. Where are
Yeah,
you?
Annie's looking from 2018-19 to this year.
My error.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Oops,
and I
you
just changed it. Sorry.
You just changed the screen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're
Yeah.
okay there?
Yeah,
All right.
that was from last year.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on. That was answered, right? Sorry.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. All right, the next line, the reason why we all come here, and it's teaching and instruction. So it starts off with supervision for the regular school. Some of these increases are based on contracts, obviously, increases within the contracts. Research and planning and evaluation that is our CIO, our Chief Information Officer, Nicole McCollum, who does a great job for us. The in-service training, this is mostly professional development, not all. We were able to tweak that a little bit and bring it down by prioritizing what was in that line. And then we have the big one, teaching regular school. The adjustments are as follows. We reduced professional development, field trips. We just reduced them. They're still in there, but they're at a lesser amount. We did eliminate the furniture line. We have been, a furniture line was only put in 1 or 2 years ago, and we were replacing furniture in 2 high school rooms each year. Honestly, it wasn't being used. We did a few small teaching tables in the elementary, but one thing that we noticed is we could be really smart about using some of the money this year to replace one of the classrooms next year in the high school, and that allowed us to reduce the furniture replacement lines to 0. We did reduce textbooks. We looked carefully at how much we've been spending. We were able to reduce that. We pulled back on the speech improvement. Just for your information, speech improvement is a regular ed service through a BOCES COSER. It is primarily for the youngest children, the K, first grade, second grade children. It is for non-special education speech improvement, and we took it down from 2 days to 1 day. We reduced, and this one, you know, certainly I would take any kind of guidance, so I'm expecting guidance and feedback from the board afterwards. I did reduce the 2 BARD seniors to a single BARD senior. That was an $11,000 savings. We slightly reduced the expenses for arts and ed. Those are typically assemblies. And we were able to eliminate 2 teaching assistant positions. Programs with students with disabilities. Originally, one of the things I was excited to share with the board was to increase by our expenses for either a social worker or some kind of mental health worker because of the increase we've seen in needs of our students in that area. And we have committees working on this all the time, and with all the recommendations they gave us, that seemed to be the one that was going to give us the biggest bang for the buck, if you will. Unfortunately, we brought that down from a full-time position to a one-day-a-week position through a BOCES COSER. It was the only way we could get the spending plan down to where the state aid would, without going over the tax levy limit. There is also a reduction of one position in here, but it's not guided by the lack of state aid. It's guided by the need of students, and the need is no longer there. So that was a savings that we could take advantage of as well. And the BOCES OC-Ed, this is occupational education. We call this CTE, Career Tech Ed. We eliminated a relatively small COSER for a business and educational partnership, which we have not used fully. And I felt that that would be a place where we could save some money in this spending plan. Are there any questions on any of these items?
Yeah, Heather, go ahead and.
I can't see the chat, just so you know.
Yeah, Heather had just made mention, so go ahead, Heather.
Sorry. I was just concerned about the reduction of professional development and field trips. You mean professional development for the staff, like them not getting the training, or?
Well, it's not that they're not going to get it, but we looked back at how much we've been spending in that line, and we felt we were able to reduce it somewhat. I can get the exact amount if you want it. I have it on my other computer.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
We just thought that in, taking a little bit from a variety of play, like we didn't want to just wipe out any one of these things. Any other questions? Okay, I'll move
Sue,
on.
I'm sorry, I do. I just have one question.
Sure.
How many do we have going to BARD right now?
The board has given us guidance to send 2 people next year. We had 2 seniors this year. That's pretty much been the number for, I'm thinking maybe 3 years now. And it's seniors only.
And that's still $11,000.
It is. Each child. So, I mean, again, we could reduce something else and bring back that second position. I know that the board worked really hard to make sure we wouldn't have anyone disappointed, because we did have some disappointment last year. So the board gave us guidance in November, and honestly, who would have thought we'd have a pandemic? If it wasn't for the pandemic, everything has rolled along well, and we did not touch Tech Valley High. So the board we're still going with the November guidance to send a freshman to start Tech Valley High next year. And again, these are things that if the board feels you'd prefer we go one way and not another, we're still waiting for information prior to the board being able to adopt. And that's why I wanted to get this in front of you tonight.
All right, Annie just asked if the board has offered any of their special deals to our students. I'm not sure what she means by special deals.
You mean BARD?
Yeah.
This is a COSER through the BOCES Questar that is a program in Hudson. This is not like they go to BARD. It's a very different program, and it's honestly, I don't know that there is a special deal. We do get.
I think Annie is talking about BARD after you graduate is offering a reduced rate to local kids in Dutchess, Columbia County, Greene County, to the point of SUNY level. What am I trying to think of the word?
Yeah, they're just trying to reduce the tuition.
to SUNY level, like prices.
SUNY level for, yeah.
Right. And I think Annie's wondering if there's any BARD staff coming in to talk to the seniors about that, because that is really great.
Not now.
Yeah, we, I don't know what to say about that. BARD does come in and talk to the seniors about this program, and I'm sure they do talk about BARD as a choice of a college post high school. And, you know, I do happen to know that one of the Germantown Central School District students that attended this program in Hudson did get a full ride scholarship to BARD and is presently a student there. Anything else? Okay, I will move on. Okay, so this section is school library and audio visual. We eliminated the library media specialist. We had just added it 2 years ago. We struggled all last year to hire one. Apparently, there are none. There are a couple. We just decided that our 2 library aides are doing a dynamite job. And at this point in time where we need to take things out of the budget, this would have a least impact on students. Of course, we don't want to take anything out of the spending plan, not a single thing. But when we start weighing which ones would have the least and most impact, while hopefully we have a recovery with our economy, hopefully it can go back in the following year or even next year if wonderful things happen. Educational television, it's such a weird name, but what it actually is online learning. There are 3 companies we use. One is through the Capital Region BOCES. It's called Apex. The second one is Castle Learning. It's a drill and practice. And then we had EduSeer, and it just hung out in there and it wasn't used at all last year. We eliminated that. Instructional tech is an increase. It was going to be a bigger increase. So originally we were hoping to finally have a serious replacement plan for both our infrastructure, network, hardware, as well as devices for use by students and teachers and other staff. What we did is the increase for the hardware, the infrastructure, we left in because obviously if the servers aren't there, nobody's doing anything. But we did take back out the device replacement plan. It was actually, we have some Smart Schools money left. That is what we have used for many years for our device replacement plan. Prior to the COVID pandemic, there was talk about upping it, but we couldn't count on that. So we wanted a line in there to be able to replace student devices as they become no longer supported by the company. For example, our primary device now is an iPad. It has like a 3 to 5 year life and then is no longer supported. It's no longer an effective device to use. So we knew we had the smart money there, Smart Schools bond issue money. So we thought, let's take that out and hopefully get it back in next year. Also, the first item in red is there was an increase from our BOCES for our IT staff. And just a quick reminder to everyone that our entire IT department is made up of 3 different BOCES COSERs. So we have a 2-day-a-week network engineer, a 3-day-a-week technology support person, and then we have the once a month, but he comes more often than that, technology manager, IT manager. Especially in the face of the use of technology in this day, I cannot recommend to the board to reduce that whatsoever. That support is super duper important to folks now in their homes on a cell phone trying to figure out how to log in for their kiddos or the students themselves. Guidance, the one thing we took out that we had just added is a program called Naviance. The new guidance counselor wanted to use it to track students' career plans. We do that on paper now. We removed that. We will do it on paper for another year and hopefully get it back after that. The health office is pretty standard. Social work, pretty standard. Co-curricular activities, actually it's a reduction. I went through, we usually budget for every single possibility. And what we did is we budgeted for all of the clubs and student groups that have been running year to year, and we took out the ones that we post and nobody runs it. So we will post what ran this year for next year. Interscholastic athletics is always a big one. We originally had a lot more money in that line. What Lou Rodriguez shared with the board, and I think somebody picked up on it, was the best news I had all week. I was able to go in there and take out a lot of money that we had to run a bus from here to the town of Greenport every single day during the spring season, and possibly a double trip. And that's just for practices, plus paying for the fields, plus games. And so when we heard that the fields are going to be ready for play, and I didn't really say that out loud because they didn't actually seed it yet, but it's coming. That was a huge help to this budget. We also eliminated an equipment line we had just put in January. Fortunately, it was really put in for a specific piece of equipment that we had a safety issue with. It was aged out, and we are purchasing that now. We're not going to leave a safety issue there. And someday equipment lines are used for items that cost $1,000 or more. There's a lot of materials and supplies still in this budget for all the other stuff, but there aren't that many things that run $1,000 or more. And I think there's one more. This is
just one question, Sue.
Yep.
With the online learning stuff, the educational television and all of that, is Annie asked the question, will the cost go up due to COVID at all?
Well, I could talk about that for a long time, but I will try to summarize it. So we were very fortunate to have one-to-one devices and to have already been using many platforms that we find are excellent. What happened with COVID is a ton of vendors made their new products free. There are two issues with that. One is it won't be free forever, possibly. That's a problem. And the second one is the 2D privacy laws. So it doesn't matter if we're paying for a vendor or getting a free service from a vendor, they must abide by the privacy laws. That is a lot of work to do. I personally feel that we already spend a lot of money on platforms, and I think over the next year, we are going to reduce the number of vendors that we have. And really, honestly, the COVID experience has forced us to use them as primary platforms. We now really know which ones are appropriate for pre-K, which ones are great for middle elementary, what's excellent for middle school, and what works for high school. And I think what we're learning is some of the things that we are buying licenses for, we're going to discontinue. Between that and a true, really thorough examination of their ability to abide by the 2D laws, I think we're going to save money there.
Okay.
Okay, so next slide is, so we start off with transportation. And transportation is always a scary number. And for instance, we never know when suddenly a family becomes homeless, or someone moves into the district with a student that needs transportation to a special program, or one of our own students need transportation to a special program. And I will tell you that we have contingency in this line. I am petrified to take it out. I just think it would be irresponsible. And I would certainly rather come to you and say, all right, we didn't spend it all, and look back over those years. And you'll see years when we spent probably all that was budgeted and years where we did not. And it would be great to have that problem at the end of the year, but I cannot put us in a position of not being able to afford to get a child where a child needs to go, or to get a homeless child to this school when they do not have a home. State retirement out of our hands. We have updated calculations for that, and teachers retirement as well. Social Security, workers' comp. Well, Social Security is in there calculated for the employees that we have anticipate having next year. Workers' comp and unemployment, you may recall, I believe last year or the year, no, it would be last year, Jonathan and I moved that because we had a surplus in the reserves, and the school district is supposed to spend down that surplus and get it to a reasonable reserve. And so we are doing what the board approved reserve plan is dictating us to do. That is also true with retirement sick pay. So we are using our reserves to pay those amounts. Now, smack in the middle of that is hospital, medical, dental, and health insurance went up, and it went up a lot. Again, this is for the employees that we anticipate having next year, which you saw is reduced from this year by a few folks, and still that is a very significant increase. Debt service, I'd like to call attention to. You'll see back in 16, 17, 17, 18, the debt service was up close to $1 million. And then because our project didn't complete in the original anticipated year of 18, 19, we did have a drop in our debt service. Came up a little bit last year with the first bond anticipation notes, I believe affected that. And now with the endpoint of the project being within this upcoming year, 2020, we can bring that debt service up to where it really belongs. Transfer to other funds, 3 small things sitting here. One is summer school. One is transfer to cafeteria. As you know, our food service, we work very, very hard to break even. Typically, food service needs a little bit of help from the school district, but it hasn't been over $10,000 yet. And the third item is your 100,000 capital exception project. That would have been a great place to save $100,000. I really believe the board needs to leave that in there, especially with the loss of the small project items and maintenance, because that is where we do $100,000 with state aid of repairs, replacements, rebuilds every single year. And we have done all the 1999 roofs with that money, and we still get approximately half that money back in facilities aid. So I think that's an important number to stay in there. Any questions on this page?
Question, how has COVID affected our current transportation costs?
So that's a very interesting question. Where we're navigating through that as we get guidance. We've received guidance from the statewide business official group, also from the school district's attorney, and I don't have a good answer for you because there's still a giant question mark there. One concern that we have is that we are going to lose some of that state aid listed in the revenue, because there's you do not get state aid on buses that are not driving children from school to home and home to school. But we're navigating that. It is a whole project. Dina meets with the business officials once a week. I meet with the superintendents, with the BOCE, at the BOCES level 3 times a week. We hear from the attorneys often. We are navigating that. I think the short story would be, we hope there will be a way for what's not being used this year to help us next year.
And HSS, are we responsible to pay for buses that are not running? And I say right now they're contracted, it's contractual, so we would have to.
It's contractual, but we still do not have an answer to that question. So I'm afraid I can't
Gotcha.
give you an answer.
Okay.
Sue,
Yes.
do we save money on the gas contract that we have with the buses?
Great question, Donald. The fuel that we purchase for the contractors is usually used up by January. So that is not a place we're going to save money, assuming students are back at least by September.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. So this is really just a summary of what we had presented on April 8th and in the end of March. You see the state aid figures on the left. Please make note of the bottom 2 items. Oh, I keep forgetting you can see my pointer. Pandemic adjustment, $86,975 is removed, but then the federal CARES restoration is placed back in. Just so you know, that makes me nervous. And then other revenue, which is kind of typical year to year, we adjust it slightly with what happened in the most recent years. And local revenue, of course, this is real property tax. And this is, oh, I lost my percentage. 3.61, I think. Let me look it up for you. Okay, yes, 3.61% is our tax levy limit for the upcoming school year, and this takes that into account. That gives us a total revenue anticipation of $14,992,313. I'm going to move to the next slide to put that in perspective. So just, this is a summary slide, and I want to start by saying that the spending plan as presented this evening is the product of an extensive examination of previous year's expenses, the revenue reductions due to COVID-19 emergency, and the anticipated needs of our students in the upcoming school year. Oh, there's my 3.61. The spending plan is within the tax levy limit, and the spending plan, there's the total of what I just showed you. And this is an adjustment that I feel is important for us to have on our radar. For us to go to a full-time mental health worker, it could cost us, this is an estimate, $87,767. As you know, it's salary plus all of the employee benefits, et cetera, et cetera. The anticipated federal CARES restoration, the anticipated revenues without the $86,000 is this figure. We have a fund balance use that we roll every single year we use. And then here is the federal CARES restoration. And I separated it out to show you the balance of the 2 numbers and to show you the similarity in the CARES restoration money and the full-time social worker or mental health worker that really the staff, everyone feels is super important. What I would like to do is make the assumption, assuming, you know, with whatever tweaking you would like to have in the spending plan, make the assumption that we, that's bad. Hang on a second. Getting to my last moment and it ended. Oh dear. Okay, there it is. It's not quite as big as it was. Anyway, so the idea is that if we held off on hiring that mental health worker in the beginning, we're being safe in case the state cannot restore the federal CARES money. But then at some point, again, being optimistic and hoping good things happen, once we get word that money's restored, we could immediately, we already have permission from the voters. It is within a balanced budget to go ahead and hire that individual. So that, I know it's not a normal way for you to think of the budget by having this sort of wild card in the middle, but I think it's a smart way to plan for next year. Now, unfortunately, today I had to add the last bullet. The governor recently stated that he's considering an additional 20% reduction in state aid to schools. This is purely a conversation at this point in time. I am hoping that this is part of the conversation between the state and the federal government to get more help. But it would be wrong of me not to tell you that that would mean we could feasibly lose an additional $735,000. And I'm sorry to finish on that note. I would, before I entertain questions, I'd like to go back to one thing, if I may, because I think it's important also for you to look at this slide again and note that we have no date for a budget vote. Therefore, since in the law, all dates are counted backwards from the budget vote date, we have no deadlines, no public hearing date, and we're waiting, and the superintendents are truly lobbying the lawmakers to please give us this information and make the decisions they have to make regarding the budget vote this year for schools. And
I thought June 1st or something like that is no longer
the wording was after June 1st.
after. Okay.
So we do not have an actual date. There's lots of talk about different ways of doing it. The New York State School Boards is really advocating strongly to ease up on the burden to the school districts, having a lot of conversations about what it would look like to do all absentee ballots. I mean, you can't have a crowd of people voting in a room. There's a lot of questions here. This is not a simple issue. It's quite complicated.
So if that did, Annie just asked me a question, if by chance that last bullet does happen, we would have to come up with $735,000 worth of cuts.
That's right, and that's humans. There's no way to get to a number like that without it being humans.
Well, here's praying that doesn't happen.
Yes.
Sue, I have a question for you.
Sure.
What, if anything, do we have left in our fund reserve?
Our reserves are pretty healthy, but we, for instance, we're using them to help us a lot in this spending plan, and we started doing that last year. We have a capital project reserve, and that can't help us with any of this. We have an emergency building repair reserve that really can't help us with this, but the reserves are in okay shape. I don't know that we're going to be able to add to them this year. We typically do every year. What we're trying to do is make sure that this year's budget is spent in a really smart way. Maybe we're buying things for next year to help reduce expenses for next year, so that we can make it through this tough time. Unfortunately, economies don't typically spring back very quickly. We saw that back in the 08, 09, and the federal government did give us the ERA funds. That was a huge help. So that's on the superintendent's radar and the business officials. But there's not really any place there that could help us with not reducing personnel if we were to get the additional 20% cut. I should say there's always the option of going to the voters above the tax levy limit. I personally would not recommend that. I think a lot of our families and our citizens and our community are struggling with their own economic problems. A lot of people have been laid off. I personally would not recommend going to the voters for over the tax cap amount of money.
That was another question Annie had. She said, what happens if folks can't afford to pay their taxes, you know, due to their no income or limited incomes, you know, if they're still out of work? Good question. I don't think there's an answer for it.
Don't actually have an answer.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, what is the pandemic adjustment? We talked about that.
So the pandemic adjustment, let me go back a slide. This is something that, you know, Governor Cuomo had, this is the actual enacted budget state aid. And our belief is that the adjustment was made to help the state in their budget reconciliation that obviously they need to have. And the hope is that the federal money going to the government would be able to replace it. We feel we're still in the throes of this pandemic, economically and health-wise, and I'm just nervous about making the assumption, since that money is coming out. I actually had it up here originally. I like to see it. It comes out at the beginning. It goes in at the end. So when does it come back? Does it come back in time? Does it ever come back? You know, unfortunately, there are far more unanswered questions. And budgeting, you know, I toyed with the idea of holding off till we knew more, and felt that at this point in time, it's only fair to share publicly and be transparent about what we're grappling with. Because at some point in time, that budget vote date will come out, and we will start the countdown of the board needing to actually adopt a spending plan and putting it before the voters.
Anybody have any other questions?
Okay, I'm going to stop the share and bring us back. Okay, so just for a quick little note for the folks that are public attendees this evening, all of these items will be placed on the website, as well as the board meeting itself. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I guess I really should ask if there's any guidance about any of those decisions we made, because we might end up, you know, if we got a date of June 1st, we're going to be meeting really fast on this. If there was anything that you prefer I adjust regarding what we took out or what is still in.
Anybody? All right,
Ralph.
Ralph has a question. Yeah, he's muted. So hold on, Ralph.
Let me. I think I can. Whoopsie. That's not it.
He can unmute himself too.
He can. Yeah.
Are you on a computer, Ralph, or an iPad?
I'll get him. I'll get him unmuted. Where is Ralph?
Okay, just unmute everybody.
Okay, unmute all. That's a great idea.
That'd be
Okay.
easier.
Is there any thought or idea on graduation?
Oh, lots of those. Lots and lots and lots. So obviously, first thing we have to know is, are the students coming back before graduation?
That I'd almost say no.
I don't think
There's
so.
that, but we don't know that yet for sure. So if the students come back, there are some ideas. There are far more ideas about if they do not. This is a constant conversation. Jamie Didana is meeting with high school principals in the entire BOCES at least once a week. I think he meets twice a week, and he's meeting with his faculty several times a week. We have started a spreadsheet with all the ideas. We had some community members reach out and ask if they could help. I think we have some great ideas, and we are going to make it super duper special, and we will keep you posted.
Okay.
On that note, has prom been postponed and?
You know, everything is canceled at this point in time, all large field trips. Prom, I think we're a little bit luckier than some school districts because many people have senior proms. Germantown has a junior prom. And the good news is we will have those kids next year or in the summer. Some school districts have issues because you can't have a senior prom after the students are no longer a student of the school. They could do something themselves, but they can't do it as a student of the school because they are no longer. And who knows, maybe the government will give us some kind of waivers or exceptions. But the good news is the juniors will be seniors next year. And, you know, I don't want to go on record with any of the ideas because it's truly up to the students, the families, the faculty to come up with a great idea, but we have some good ideas there as well.
Okay, good.
Okay. Is there anything else good in order before we adjourn? All right, let me check my agenda, make sure that's it. Okay, that is.
I think you're good.
All right, so I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Heather? Any second?
Second.
All right, last second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a great
Be
night.
safe. Yeah,
Teresa,
stay safe.
did you get the email? Did that answer your questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, have a good
All
night.
right, good night, everybody.
Good night.